I'm Luke Marson, Senior Solution Architect at the Gaffney Group, a European-based HCM consultancy. I'm also a SAP Mentor, as you can see from my lovely attire. I'm also at the moment just finishing co-authoring the SAP press book, Success Factors for SAP ERP HCM, which I hope is going to be a useful and helpful title for people when it comes out at the start of September.
Excellent. So what have brought you to this event today? Why have you attended?
Well, for me, the SAPinsider HR event is the best SAP HCM event there is. I attended in Las Vegas earlier in the year and in Milan last year, and their first event in the US last year. I do think it's got the best content, it's well organised, it's a great networking event, it's a good opportunity to speak to fellow customers, other partners, to people from SAP, and just to get a really good insight about what's going on and what people are doing and what the kind of trends are across the industry. And you know, you do get international audience coming to these conferences, so it's good to get a feel of what's going on in a wider kind of wider geographical area.
So, what would you say is the highlights from the last 2 days of the SAP Insider conference?
Well, it was nice to see a surprise appearance by Thomas Otter in the keynote, and have some kind of more straightforward answers. You know, he doesn't beat around the bush very much, so that was quite good to see. I did a very interesting discussion session yesterday on success factors that had some really interesting customer discussions. Got to see some pain points. There was some good information there that success factors picked up on some pain points. So for me, that was quite interesting. It was quite good to actually get a few customers saying, "Well, this is how we're finding using the system now that we've got it in place." Without trying to sound like I'm bigging myself up, but I was on another panel today, which I think was probably the best session I've been to, the future of SAP HCM Consulting, with Jeremy Masters, Sharon Newton, Thomas Otter, and Prashant Padmanabhan, and also featuring myself, and moderated by Martin Gillette. That was a really good, interesting session. It was packed out, a lot of audience questions, a lot of good discussion, some interesting insights coming from Prashant and Thomas, as well as industry experts Jeremy and Sharon. And that session was recorded, so it will be available online as an audio podcast in the next couple of weeks as well. So those are my main highlights. I also quite enjoyed Mark Brandau's session on SuccessFactors Learning. It didn't really cover the solution too much, which I actually quite enjoyed, because he went into more thought leadership about learning and about some of the key features that are included in SuccessFactors Learning that support those. And for me, that was just a really interesting session, even though it wasn't what I expected. I think it turned out to be better.
Very good. So, if we look at the future of the actual SuccessFactors and HCM world, and where the actual software is going, and how SAP is merging those two together on the back of these panels you've done, where would you see it in, let's say, the next 1 to 2 years, maybe 3-year period? Where do we think that the complete integration is going to be, and how is it going to be looking in the future?
I think, to be honest, 1 to 2, maybe 3 years, we aren't looking at significant changes. I think we're going to see a slow adoption of SuccessFactors continue over this time. I think we're going to see acceleration in Employee Central, both in development and adoption. We will see more integration content. We may even see, I think we might see the roadmap completed within 3 years from now. Things haven't been so fast with that, so I'm not sure whether they will have all their full integration out. Of course, standard content is not going to cover every single process, so it's interesting to see how many of the different processes they're going to cover. For example, in compensation, at the moment they've covered the main, the main compensation changes, but there's nothing for variable pay there. Nothing about getting those back into those changes back into SAPs. And they've got 2 packages for recruiting. They're going to have 3 for learning. So it's interesting to see to what extent for each solution they're going to go, and whether they will maybe even do anything for things like succession when they are working on skills and competencies.
Very good. So obviously this is on the back of SAP themselves keeping on talking about HANA it's the day of the word. You know, SAPinsider might not really have had that much HANA going on in terms of the bigger picture, at least not compared to Sapphire, but does the HANA product and vision have an impact on the success factors, the HCM space at all?
Well, it's been quite refreshing that I've hardly heard the word HANA over the 3 days I've been at the conference so far, which I think is the complete opposite of what you would have expected of something like Sapphire, which is a SAP run event. To be honest, there's not a lot going on with HANA HCM at the moment. There are plans. I think largely it's going to have the biggest impact upon payroll, but I think it's also going to have a good impact on success factors. Once that's the database has been replaced, that's going to make processing of data very quick. I think because one of the problems you have with the latency of success factors being somewhere else is that you have a kind of restriction in the speed data can get to you, but so this can be at least processed much quicker in the data center side. That's going to feed through to the customer quicker, and things like workforce analytics are going to be extremely powerful, extremely instant. The solution is already quick, but it's going to become much more powerful. So there's definitely going to be speed benefits, and then also there's going to be those benefits. I think Steve Bogner described it as the iPad effect. You didn't know you needed it until you got it. So there are going to be these new features. We don't know about them, that we don't know what these things are. It's going to be about how HANA helps innovation and helps drive new features and new ways of doing things in SAP that actually just simply weren't possible before HANA.
Okay, interesting. So what is the competitors then in this space? What are they doing to play the game of HCM and success factors? Are there anything out there that you think could potentially move quicker and become a more powerful tool than where SAP and success factors are heading, or what is the competition like?
Well, the biggest threat by far is Workday. They are a SaaS vendor with a good HCM product. They've been making a lot of inroads in the UK and into some of the other markets where SAP has been traditionally quite big. So now SAP have success factors. They are quite similar. I think success factors do come out ahead in terms of talent. But with the acceleration Employee Central, I think that will help push success factors ahead of Workday, or at least clearly ahead of Workday within the core HR area as well. I think a genuine SaaS payroll would be something that will give success factors even more of an edge as well over Workday. I mean, there is still some competition from Oracle, but I don't think that is so strong, particularly not in the cloud area. So I think it, Workday definitely is the main threat at the moment. And often you see SAP customers, when they're looking at going to the cloud, they're often evaluating success factors and Workday alongside each other. Okay. So what about the adoption of the actual success factors scenario in Europe or the US? What is SAP doing to bring that adoption into a higher gear, and are they doing enough to actually explain and mitigate the concerns and lack of knowledge in this space from customers out there? Well, I'm seeing adoption increase. I mean, for example, the UK and Denmark are very strong within Europe, and we're seeing a lot of interest in the Nordic countries. The US, of course, has primarily been the main arena for success factors, and that hasn't changed. Particularly seeing much stronger adoption of Employee Central in the US than had originally been expected. I've seen a lot of renewed optimism around Employee Central. The words Thomas and Otter have been very popular, and a lot of people have been talking about that, and obviously a lot of people feel that that's going to be a really positive factor in pushing Employee Central to the next level and making it a genuine kind of replacement for core HR on premise. I think one thing that surprised me is the amount of customers that have implemented success factors without using any SAP standard integration. They built it, and it seems that once customers have built it, integration is not an issue. It seems it's an implementation issue. It's something that has to be done, but it's I think with the fact that the implementation is usually shorter, even with the integration added in, it's still not as painful as maybe going through an on-premise implementation of a SAP module. So I think although there are a lot of concerned customers who maybe see it as a barrier to adoption, a lot of customers actually have already made that jump to just one module, don't really seem to see it as an issue. So although I think SAP should be providing standard content for integration, some customers are carrying on irrespective of what SAP are doing in that area.
Okay, very good. So, towards the end here, what would the top 3 pieces of advice you would give a CIO who were planning on doing investments in the HCM space?
Okay. Well, without knowing too many details, I would definitely say that they want to look at analytics. They want to get an analytics strategy in place. They want to get a system that can provide them with accurate analytics, and also kind of robust strategy on how they're actually going to interpret and use that analytics data. You know, they need to know what they are looking for, how they want to use it, and how they're actually going to improve their business using analytics. That would be the first thing I'd probably want to suggest. If they're not using talent management, certainly I would recommend you need to look at an end-to-end talent management solution, probably a SaaS-based one as well, although that would depend on the organization themselves. And lastly, I would probably say, investigate mobile options. Maybe not SAP's mobile apps, maybe look at Fury or look at actually building your own apps as well. There's a lot of good technology for that at the moment, and it's going to increases productivity. A lot of the common features that people normally would have to log into MSS or ESS for can be done on the mobile quite easily when they're on the way home or on something like that. So I think those are 3 areas I would probably say to take a look at the moment.
Great. And if you were a young HR, HCM consultant trying to grow into the world of SAP, what would your 3 pieces of advice be to an aspiring junior consultant like that?
Okay, I would say learn, research, learn what's going on in the marketplace, learn all about what the SAP modules are, what they basically do. I think it's important to get hands-on experience, and a lot of consultants actually come from customer side first, so I would recommend that actually a lot of people get a job in a company that uses SAP HCM in the HR department, HR administrator or something. Just get used to using that system, learning what it does, learn it inside out, because then you're more likely to be able to make the transition to consultant. And third, understand business process and understand the difference between a process and technology, and then how the technology supports that process. The best consultants out there are the people that understand both the business side and then how the system supports it. And working with the customer actually would be the best way of doing that.
Excellent. So the very last question on today's agenda. Which one of the SAP mentors is your favorite?
That's a tough question. There are some very good SAP mentors, and I don't really want to have to pick any particular one, but there's a question there, so I'll answer it. There's some very good people. I do like spending a lot of time with people like Martin Gillette, and meeting people like John Reed and stuff. But I'm gonna say Jared Pazahanik. He's a good guy. I speak to him quite a lot. I've got a lot of respect for him. He speaks his mind. He says things as they are, and he doesn't give BS to customers. Basically, he tries to make sure they understand everything, whether that affects him or not personally. He's a good customer advocate, and I definitely think he's the best mentor in the HCM space. Anyway.
Excellent. Anything to add at the end of the game, or anything else? We can cut this off, of course, but anything to add?
Just that if you didn't come to the conference or you haven't been to the conference, make sure you go next year. Whether it's in the US or in Europe, I definitely recommend it, and I would recommend doing some networking, go to the panel sessions, use the Ask the Experts, wander around and talk to all the experts at booths and stuff, and you will find that you will get a lot from this conference.